Welcome back to the show, Simon Doull.
Morning, Marty. How are you?
Simon, when Ross said that the opposition planned for him, that to me is the key comment. They fully expected him to play.
Yeah, they did, and also they would be wary of what he has done in the past. And when you're wary of a player or a batter or a bowler, you have to make certain plans for them. And they would have certainly talked. He would have taken up a lot of time in that batting and that team meeting, I believe, just because of the way he goes about things, the constant pressure you're under when you're facing a bowler like Neil Wagner, and what the batters have to go through mentally and physically to combat it.
Look, when he retired last week, and we had him on the program as well, and I kind of got caught up and lost in the fact that, wow, this guy's he's such a fan favourite. The people love him and celebrating his career in that, and didn't really probe too much into why you're retiring now. It did seem really strange that all of a sudden, hang on a second, he says he's available, but he's actually going to retire before he's needed. Why hasn't he been selected? And then they bring Kugelijn in, and you think, well, if Kugelijn can come in, why wouldn't you pick Wagner? Do you believe that there is more to this story now than what we've been told?
I think there might be, and I know Neil Wagner well enough to know that he's never going to come out and say anything against the establishment or against New Zealand cricket or against his teammates. He's just not that sort of bloke. Was he forced into it? You get the feeling that he might have been forced into it now, which is a terrible shame, really. And, I'm also not a fan, Marty, of a last test hurrah just for the sake of it. No. You're sort of completely out of it. I'm not a fan of that. So I'm not saying that that's what should have happened. They don't give him something just for the sake of giving him something and letting him say goodbye if he's not good enough to do it. But I still think he's good enough to do it. And I think that's the key. So there is certainly more to it now from what we're hearing, I think, than maybe, what has been said so far.
They didn't do it for you, Simon, and you were on 98 test wickets, and we had a gimme test, I think it was against the Deshies, wasn't it, in your home tracker, Hamilton, and a lot of us thought at the time, well, Doull will play, he'll get 100 wickets, it's a nice way to leave. But sport doesn't allow that very often. There are no farewell tours, and I agree with you on that. But just on merit, now you're looking at Christchurch.
Yes.
And look, we could talk about the Wellington test as much as we want, and we will touch on that, but it's been and gone, and we have to look at Christchurch now, and we've got to look at winning this test. Could he be a better option in Christchurch if he was available and they did select him, Neil Wagner?
Well, if you look at what Christchurch has delivered in the last few years, it's been friendly for the bowlers on day 1.5, and then it's flattened out, and it's generally been a very good batting surface at Hagley Oval. So I would say you need a guy like Neil Wagner more than you would need a Kugelijn Sears type bowler. You need someone who's going to bowl you 25 in the day, who's going to do something a little bit different, who's going to come around the wicket, who's going to bowl that short stuff, and just give you that wholehearted energy on a flattish surface, which is what tends to be Christchurch, on days 3, 4, and 5. So, I would have had him in the side purely on merit.
Simon Doull is with us, 98 test wickets for New Zealand. He spends his whole life going around the world commentating cricket in Sydney at the moment. Were you surprised at the result at the Basin Reserve? And the sub-part of that question is, we prepared a pitch that was green and grassy, and then we got skittled out twice for under 200 by their pace bowlers. Nathan Lyon came in and took, 10 wickets or something on a track that wasn't meant to spin that much. So a lot of questions in there for you, obviously, but it's your cricket brain. I want to answer those.
Surprised? No, because I think we have a real mental block against Australia. I just don't think that we can find a way, and they know that they're better than us as well, which is part of an answer to your question. Nathan Lyon is an absolute gun. He is a genius of a bowler. Very few finger spinners around the world have ever been able to do and will ever do again what he's been able to do. Only Ashwin in the subcontinent, and Ashwin's developed carom balls and different types of delivery. Nathan Lyon is an out-and-out finger spinner, an off spinner, who has got an incredible test match record. So it's no disgrace being bowled out by him twice, but the bottom line is it shouldn't really be happening in our backyard for under 200, and that would be the concern for me. guys just unable to play against Australia and big names. I mean, I look at Kane Williamson's record, and Kane is a terrific player. And don't get me wrong, I've always said he's one of New Zealand's greatest players and probably will be one of New Zealand's greatest players of all time. But you look at his record against the big three, he averages less than 38 against India, Australia and England at the moment. And that would be a concern for him. I just for a sort of a point of reference, I went back through Martin Crowe's record just against probably the best bowling attacks in his time. And against Pakistan, he averaged 57, against the West Indies 48, and against Australia 45. Now, they were probably the three best bowling attacks and the three best sides he played against in his career. So I just wanted a bit of a comparison just to figure out, Kane's three best bowling attacks have easily been India, England, and Australia that he's played up against. And he averages less than 38 against all of them, yet he averages 57 over his career. So he will know those numbers and he would want to improve those numbers, but he kind of has to lead, because if he's not getting runs against these good sides, then very few others are going to. The form of, obviously, prior to this test match, the form of some of New Zealand's players would be a concern, that's for sure. So, yeah, there's a lot of worries. I think the future-proofing, the future planning, sorry about the crossing sign, Marty.
That's right.
The future-proofing, the future planning for New Zealand cricket hasn't been great on bringing players through and sort of assisting in that way. I don't think that's been great. So, there's a few things about where New Zealand cricket are at and a bit of work to do.
Where are you walking at the moment?
We're just walking down to the Rocks Cafe.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, beautiful part of Australia, beautiful part of Sydney that is.
Very nice part of it. Actually, I didn't realise how good Sydney was, mate, until we were here for the T20 World Cup.
Yeah.
I hadn't been back for a long time. It is one of the great cities.
Oh, it's a peach of a city. It really is. It is one of the world's greatest cities, isn't it? Built around that harbour, and you just think, come on, Auckland, get your act together. We are a little smaller version of it, but can be as beautiful. All right.
Yep.
Just the mental block with Australia then. We all talk about this. The players refuse to acknowledge it. They say it's not there. It just seems real. So I mean, we saw it. We only had to defend 35 in the last 2 overs of the first T20. We crap the bed against them so often. It's either a remarkable series of coincidences or there's something to it.